Hey everybody, and welcome to our early comics review video. I'm Andy.
I'm Matt.
We're here with Infinity Flux Comics out of Chattanooga, Tennessee. This is our big show where we show you some of the biggest and best books that you can get this week in your local comic book store or over at infinityflux.net. It's all live right now where you can go over there and order it while supplies last. And let me just tell you, for some of these, supplies will not last long. This is some hot deals going on. No, it's some huge books coming out this week. We can't wait to talk about. So head on over to infinityflux.net right now and get your orders in. So this is the beginning of the absolutely biggest time in comics.
This is an absolute great comic that we're going to talk about. Absolute Batman #1 comes out this week on Wednesday. Really, this show could just be the Infinity Flux early comics or early Absolute Batman preview video, and then we'll just like mention everything at the end because this book is awesome. It's one of the best books I've read all year. The hype is real. This is going to sell out. You're definitely going to want to try to get this. So this is written by Scott Snyder. The art is by Nick Dragotta. And you guys know the deal by now. This is Batman in a new universe. This is our first book in the Absolute universe. In 2 weeks, we're going to get Absolute Wonder Woman, which we both read, and it's fantastic. And then in early November, we're going to get Absolute Superman. And this is, like I said, a whole new universe. In this universe, the heroes don't quite have all the advantages that they do in the main universe. So, for example, Bruce Wayne, Batman, he is not a billionaire. He doesn't have money. He doesn't have a butler. He doesn't have a bag. I always love how they say he doesn't have a butler. Like that is like super necessary to be a superhero, you know? Um, so he doesn't have any of those things. He's a city engineer. He's a young guy. I think he's like 24 years old.
He is jacked though.
He is, but he's not. I will say he's not quite as swole as that. Like I feel like on the cover they exaggerated it just a little, but he is still very, very, very big. But in the comic, he looks like he's just a big. Like there's guys that big in real life. So this is a 40-page book. The price is how much is it? Oh, $4.99. But it's 40 pages, so you feel like you get a good meaty story in here. It doesn't feel like it ends too quickly. You do get a good mix of everything. It's also not an origin story. Bruce Wayne is already Batman in this, so you don't have to go through the thing of, oh, his parents died and he sees the bat. There's nothing like that. Although through flashbacks we do see the circumstances by which he became Batman, but he's already Batman.
Like we'll still get even more of that as we go on because you're only given just a very brief little hints of stuff that's happened.
Yeah, for sure. Now, this issue is narrated by Alfred. Alfred does play a big part in this as well, although Alfred is not Batman's butler in this. He is an agent for MI6 or something like MI6. I don't think they specifically mentioned MI6, but he is like a secret agent kind of thing like that. He shows up in Gotham because there is this gang called the Party Animals, and they've been terrorizing the city. And Alfred's superiors have told him, go to Gotham and get information on these guys, which is a little bit weird because Alfred has spent the last 5 years tracking somebody around the globe. And he said, oh, I was right there. I was about to get him. And then you sent me to do this instead. And they said, don't worry about it. Don't question it. So I feel like there's something more there that we're going to learn about later.
Yeah, the whatever organization he works for is kind of like, you can tell they're pretty cold.
Yeah.
They're pretty, but there does seem to be more at play.
Yeah, for sure. So we don't really know based off this one issue, but there's a story there too that I think we're going to find out. So we get our first look at Batman in action during this town hall that they're having, and the party animals, they show up and start attacking this town hall, and Batman comes in, and that's where you get the big action sequence that they've released preview pages of, and you see him like whipping guys with his cape and bearing down on him, and he uses his chest emblem as an axe. We've seen all of that, so that's where you see all that stuff. It gives us a good idea about what kind of fighter he is, what kind of gadgets he has, and things like that. There's a lot more to this book than what I'm saying. I don't want to rob you of any surprises whatsoever. We do see that Bruce Wayne has had a different upbringing. He grew up with friends that he didn't grow up with in the main universe. He grew up in a different part of Gotham than he grew up with than he grew up in the main universe. I don't want to say anything about that, so I don't want to rob you of those surprises. There's also a very big surprise near the end that I think people are going to be talking about for a while. It was I didn't when I turned the page, I was like, oh, okay, I did
Yeah.
not see that coming. I did not see the story going in that direction. So a very big surprise there. And there's also something very, very interesting on the very last page. So be sure
It's like an
to,
after the
yeah,
credits type scene.
yeah, because the last big page shows you like a writer and artist and all the credits for the book. But turn it one more, and there's something really interesting there that I cannot wait. I don't think we're going to get like that's not going to be the next issue. That's
Yeah.
going to be like the slower burn. So like I said, I left a lot out, not because I don't want to talk about it, but for your sake. I want you to read this and have the exact same experiences reading this for the first time as we did. But I will say, this is awesome. This is one of the best books I've read all year. I love it. I'm completely on board. Scott Snyder has said that he has planned at least the first 15 issues already, and I can see it because of the differences in this. There are so many things that they could do that we've never seen before with Batman. It's amazing. I mean, it really is. You know, I don't know if everybody else feels the same way, but I think it's one of the best books I've read all year. I believe the hype. It really is as good as you think it will be. Yeah.
Yeah, it's hard to talk about, and it'll be great when issue 2 comes out and everyone had read issue 1, so we can talk about it a little bit more in depth. But it is that idea of, okay, if you took away these key elements from Batman, like he's a billionaire.
Yeah.
Okay, he didn't grow up rich, and immediately that starts being like, well, then where did he grow up? Who was around him?
Yeah.
What about his parents at the time? If they weren't rich, then what did they do?
Yeah.
There's all these things, and then that really is the kind of the seed that grows into what this version of Batman is.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's the most interesting thing, because as it kind of expands, these new questions open up about, like, oh, then what would happen here? Or
Yeah.
what, if he didn't have the manor, then he didn't have X, Y, and Z. And so where's this and where's
Yeah,
this?
like if
And
he doesn't have the mansion, then he doesn't have the Batcave. So if he doesn't have a Batcave, where does he operate out
yeah.
of? And we do see that kind of stuff in here, and it's really cool.
Yeah, but it's that cool idea of, like, okay, given these a couple of key factors, he doesn't have the A, B, and C.
Mm-hmm.
That changes really who Batman is pretty dramatically as time goes on. And I can't wait to see. There's so many characters that aren't mentioned or we don't see or whatever. It's like, yeah, but how would even they be affected by
Yeah.
this kind of shift in Gotham as a whole? Who is the richest person in Gotham?
Right.
Who is, all of that is super, super interesting. And I could see now why Scott Snyder, like you said, has such big story ideas for this,
Mm-hmm.
because it feels like it just, just starts running,
Yeah.
and you wouldn't be able to stop your ideas for this.
Yeah, sky's the limit as far as like where this book can go and what they could do and things like that. So yeah, just absolutely loved it. This has our highest recommendation possible. Yeah, it's fantastic. Now I will say too that if you come into the store and you buy it from us locally, or if you buy it on our website, you also get this Superman Justice League membership card. So last week was the Batman one with the all-in special. This week is Superman. Quantities are limited though, is what I'm
Yeah.
trying to say. So, while supplies last, if you order online, you will get one of these if we still have some. If you come into the store, you will get one of these if we still have some. But we do have more of this issue than cards. So don't worry about it. If the card runs out, you could still get the book. So just wanted to let you know that the Superman card is there as well. But yeah, very cool. So we have this A cover right here. This is the one that everybody's seen. And we have some really cool variants. So we have this Wes Craig variant. We have this really cool Jim Lee variant. We've got this Mitch Gerads variant. And we do kind of see some of that in the book there. This really cool foil variant with just the big old bat logo. And then this is the one I pre-ordered. This is the A cover, but a virgin foil cover by Nick Dragotta. And we have some cool variants. This is the 1 in 25 by Ian Bertram that we're selling for $24.99. And then we have the 1 in 50 Mitch Gerads. It's the other one. It's the foil version of the one we saw a minute ago. We're selling that one for $39.99.
And just an idea too, the original Batman decided to become a bat when a bat flew through the window of his manor. Well, why does he become Batman in this? Because no bat flies through the window of a manor that he's staying in.
Right.
So even that idea of why he becomes a bat is a new story.
Yeah.
So just think how granular you can get with this cool idea. So next up, I've got a new one from Marvel. This is Blade Red Band #1. This is a new miniseries. It is in continuity, and mine is not in the polybag because I read it, but this does come polybagged. Much like the Werewolf by Night, where there is only the polybagged version of it. It's like that. There is no non-polybagged version. So there's nothing really to compare it to. But I will say probably the most graphic part of this is the cover. This is not quite as over the top as even some of Blood Hunt was, uh, but it could change as it goes on. But let's get into talking about what this is about because it is by Brian Hill and the art is by C.F. Villa, which I think the art is one of the standout parts of this. I think it's really clean. It's not overly complex and there's too much going on. Very easy to follow. And this does take place after the events of Blood Hunt, where Blade was the primary villain in it after he had been possessed by the original vampire. So in this, he's kind of recovering from that. He's also has put himself in exile in Southeast Asia to just like I don't know what's going on here. I just want to get away and clear my head and all of that. So he's out on his own. He's hunting and fishing, and he goes into town at one point to get some metal because it looks like he's going to be crafting some new blades. But definitely taking himself off the radar of the hero community, the villains, all of that. But that's not going to last long because one day a very creepy, mysterious character shows up uh, that say they're from a group called the Spell Guard, which I don't think is a group we've met before because even he kind of comments of like, oh, another one of these like groups that's trying to take over or get all the scary people in line, that kind of stuff. But this person basically says, "Come with me, and I've got a proposition for you." Of course, Blade doesn't want to do it, but circumstances get him to go along. And this character explains that at one point there is this group of vampires that still remains after Blood Hunt and has kind of become a little too much. They're overstepping their bounds. They kind of want to bring out the vampire nation once again. And Blade's like, yeah, I don't care. And they're like, well, we sent one of our people to deal with it, and the problem is they ended up killing the leader of this vampire group, and then they became the leader of it. So even one of our own people got pulled into this whole mess, and we need you to go in and stop them. And they have their reasons why, and one of them is they have been doing experiments, maybe not even on vampires, but regular people, but with some vampire kind of magic that is pretty horrible, and they're using civilians for it. So something there's other reasons too, but is going to pull Blade into this mission he doesn't want to be on, and that's kind of the setup for the story. I thought it was really good. I think the art's really cool. I like Blade's look in this. He's a little bit more less clean cut.
Yeah.
He definitely looks like he's been just out surviving. His hair's a little bit longer. His beard's a little bit longer.
And he's not wearing like this sleek black armor and everything. He still has a long trench coat, but he just looks more like a rough and tumble vampire hunter than like almost a superhero.
Right.
It looks really good.
Yeah, but this is a really cool take on bringing back some of the horror elements, the vampire elements after Blood Hunt, and kind of reestablishing what those all mean at this point. But yeah, I really liked it, and like I said, it's the Red Band is the only version of it. It is really like there's the violence level is only turned up maybe a little bit more than average for a couple of panels towards the end, but mostly this feels like a really cool new Blade comic that I hope people check out. So that is our A cover. And I do not have a variant cover for it. I think there was only one or two, but I think we could already be sold out of them.
Nice. Well, I've got a new book from Marvel. This is Sentinels #1. This is our next in the From the Ashes era X-Men books. This is written by Alex Pagnadel and the artist by Justin Mason. And this is about this group of, I think they're, like former Army vets. They're kind of like this paramilitary team now, but it's a new group of Sentinels basically. And they have been enhanced with Sentinel technology, but it's not, they're not like wearing like big bulky Sentinel suits. It's almost like nanotech, and they're able to manipulate it and absorb other technology and things like that. And this group works for Lawrence Trask, who was the son of Bolivar Trask, who was the original creator of the Sentinels. And they work out of Greymalkin Prison, which we've seen in the pages of Uncanny X-Men. So I thought that was a cool. They don't really like reference it too much. I think that Dr. Ellis that we've seen in Uncanny X-Men, she shows up in this a little bit. So it's cool to see that little bit of connective tissue there. So the first part of this issue is them on a mission. They are tasked with capturing a very familiar bad guy mutant. I don't want to tell you who it is, but if you're an X-Men fan, you definitely know, you've definitely seen them. But it does give us a nice glimpse at their abilities, what they can do with this new technology. And then the rest of the issue is them back at their base, and we see that maybe these new enhancements they have aren't so great. The technology is still very new. It's a little bit buggy, and there are definitely some negative side effects to them that they're kind of wrestling with. But I thought this was a really good first issue. The characters in here that we follow are definitely the protagonists of this series, but I feel like they would be the antagonists in maybe an X-Men book. And I wonder if they're ever going to mix it up with the X-Men. I might be wrong about that, but that's just kind of the feeling I get. So I don't know if they'll ever pop up in a like an X-Men proper book, and maybe they'll fight it out. I'm not sure. But it was interesting, like because this one for me, out of all the From the Ashes books that are announced, this one to me was the most of an unknown quantity. Like I don't really know who these characters are. I don't think it's the first appearance of any of
I don't
these.
think so.
I'm pretty sure they popped up in other places before as minor characters, but I just didn't really know what to expect out of this book. But it was pretty good. Like it's different. It's part of the new From the Ashes era books, but it's quite a bit different than anything else that's out there, because it's not really about mutants. It's about the humans that I guess fight the mutants at some point. But yeah, it was pretty cool. So if you've been trying to get all the From the Ashes books, definitely don't miss this one. I don't think it's an ongoing.
I think it's a mini.
I think it's a mini series, maybe like 4 or 5 issues. But yeah, pretty darn good. So there is our A cover right there, and we have some variants. This is the Campania window shades variant, although I don't see any window shades there. We have here the Wilson variant. And then we have the 1 in 25 Nick Bradshaw variant that we're selling for $24.99. That actually has the the X-Men fighting a big Sentinel, but that doesn't happen in this book.
Well, next up for me, I have a new #1 from Marvel and Star Wars. This is Star Wars Ewoks #1. This is really cool. This is by Steve Orlando, and the art is by Alvaro Lopez and Laura Braga. And you can tell in here when it jumps back and forth between the two artists, because there's kind of two parallel storylines going on. This is actually going to be a mini series. We've gotten like a Ewoks one shot a couple years ago and all of that, but this is really cool because this is the Ewoks after the events of Return of the Jedi. And what's cool about that too is it runs alongside the current Star Wars Battle of Jakku, Insurgency Rising, and the other miniseries that are going to be coming after that, because it shares some of the same characters during one of the storylines. So in this, we have a general named General Koyata, and he was in the Battle of Endor back when the second Death Star was destroyed. This takes probably like a few weeks to a few months after the events of Return of the Jedi, and clearly it did not go well on Endor. The Empire lost, and at this point, the Empire is still trying to act like it's big and tough, but it's definitely crumbling from the inside after Palpatine and Vader are gone. And Koyata is kind of a little bit disgraced after the defeat on Endor, and he goes to Moff Adelhard, Adelhard, who was the big villain for the Battle of Jakku storyline in the other book. He seems like he's going to be the big antagonist for this storyline. And this guy goes to him and basically is like, "Hey, I know that like we lost and all of that, but I want to make it up to you and I want to prove my worth because I know there's a cache of weapons that the Empire could really use right now that we hid down on the forest moon of Endor that I could go retrieve for you." And Moff Adelhard is basically like, "Okay, like if you do that, we're good." So this is a story for one about this guy and putting together a team of him, some soldiers, and some very familiar bounty hunters going uh, down to the forest moon of Endor and learning that it's not as easy as they thought it would be when they get there. Now, the other story, the Ewok part of it, is really cool because it starts off with kind of a recap of the Ewoks' part in the fight of Return of the Jedi. Them retelling the stories, and they have their own fun names for things and what they call the rebellion, what they call the empire. Because you do actually read what they say in here. It's not just noises. It's
Does it
all,
have the little like brackets and it says
yeah,
translated from?
yeah. So it does that, and you get a lot of the Ewoks that were in Return of the Jedi and some new ones. But their big thing now is after all of that happened, they're trying to decide. They kind of have a meeting where all the Ewoks come together, and they try to decide should we kind of I don't know, it's kind of Wakanda. Should we open our borders
Hmm.
and like be more welcoming to outsiders, or should we close it off? Because in one case the Empire was really bad, and the other we helped the rebellion and they got rid of the Empire. I think they called like the Death Star like the false moon that was in the sky and stuff. Wicket is all for them helping anybody who comes along, but some of the elder Ewoks are not for this. But there is a new Ewok that comes out, and his name is Midro. And he lives on the outskirts. He doesn't live in the village with everybody else. And he's a little bit more world weary. He knows about the dangers out there. And it seems like most of the series is going to be a team up between him and Wicket, where Wicket kind of wants this Ewok's help. And the two storylines are going to clash together as the Empire, what's left of them, is going to start digging around looking for this cache of weapons and everything. Uh, it's also cool on here because you get the return of some familiar creatures to Endor that we've seen back in the animated Ewok show and some
Like
of that.
the OG one from the 80s?
Yeah,
Oh,
but it kind of
nice.
like updates a lot of
Okay.
those things in a really cool way. And there's also a rumor going around that the Empire hears about something in the woods called the Red Ghost that's, may cause trouble for them, and we do get a glimpse about what maybe that will be.
And the Super Apes are within, right? The
Yeah,
Fantastic
yeah, we
Four
talked
villain?
about like,
Yeah.
oh yeah, you said the term Red Ghost, I immediately think of the Fantastic Four
Yeah.
villain. But this was really fun. I think this, it's not like a kiddie book. It definitely like has a lot of high stakes, at least for the Ewoks and what's going on with the Empire right now, and a lot of cool action. There's multiple action scenes in it, so I really recommend Star Wars Ewoks #1. Considering we're down, we usually have Star Wars and Darth Vader. Both of those are over, and right now these are two kind of ongoing currently set Star Wars books. So don't miss out on Ewoks #1. We've got our A cover right here, and then we also have this really cool Ben Harvey variant, and that Ewok up there. That's our new one, Midro, who has like a skull helmet and a scar over his
That's
eye
like
and
he's like a
stuff.
he looks like a barbarian
Yeah, he's kind
Ewok.
of like a barbarian Ewok.
Nice. I like that. All right. Well, next up, I've got Ultimates #5, and this is our first appearance of this universe's version of Hawkeye. So this is written by Dennis Camp, the artist by Juan Frigeri, and so in this, Tony tells Steve that somebody is running around attacking oil refineries and oil lines using weapons that Tony Stark designed, and he's pretty concerned about that, right? he then tells Steve that the man who was supposed to be Hawkeye, and he never references Clint Barton by name, but that's who he's talking about. He says the guy that was supposed to be Hawkeye, he rejected the weapons and the costume that I left for
He
him.
kind of has a Spider-Man No More
Yeah.
scene with like
The trash can
trash
walking
can
away.
walking
Yeah.
away.
Because Tony Stark went around to a bunch of different heroes. We saw this in, was it Ultimates #1, where he like went to a bunch of different heroes and
Yeah.
tried to give them like how he gave Spider-Man his suit and the spider. He did the same thing for Hawkeye. Clint Barton, but again, they don't name him. But Clint Barton in this universe rejected that and threw it in the trash. Well, somebody picked it up. And they modified it a little. They modified the costume a little bit, and now they've been going around attacking these oil refineries, Roxxon, and things like that. So Cap goes to confront the person who has these weapons, and it's a young man named Charlie Ramsey. And most of the issue after that is them fighting each other, and it's really really cool. I like this new Hawkeye. He's very brash, just like Clint Barton is. Um, it's it's also a little bit more believable how he can be such a threat with just bows and arrows.
Yeah.
Because the quiver is actually a smart printing weapon system that essentially can print whatever arrow he needs on demand. And we actually see that there's a little screen on the quiver, and it says like printing, and then it'll say like sonic arrow complete
Yeah.
or whatever. And it's so cool. Like that's very very kind of far fetched, but it's comic book, so it's just really cool. Um, and yeah, so the two of them, it's the typical two heroes meet and they fight before they actually talk things out.
But it is cool how Captain America in this he never feels like he's being overly aggressive.
Right.
He's kind of trying to like talk to him while it's going on.
Trying to feel him out more than
Yeah.
he is trying to take him down. He's more defensive,
Yep.
than he is offensive. But yeah, so I don't want to. The ending is really cool too, but I don't want to say anything about that. But I love the interaction that Cap and Hawkeye have at the end. It's really really neat.
And there's a lot of action in this.
There is a lot of action for sure. Yeah, some of the Ultimate books have been a little bit of a slow burn, but yeah, lots of action between Cap. We see more Captain America in this issue than we have in any other issue of the Ultimate so far. Him and Hawkeye going at each other, and like I said, I just really like this new Hawkeye. He's a cool character.
Yeah, and I thought an interesting thing is this is our first issue that takes place after the Free Comic Book Day issue because they make reference to Human Torch that they're working on.
They're trying to fix him.
So it's cool. We kind of have jumped over that Free Comic Book Day book time. You don't see Human Torch in this, but he is referenced to. That mission from previous has happened now.
Yeah, and there's references to She-Hulk that we met an issue or two ago, and it's just cool that this team, I mentioned it the other day, I love seeing how this Ultimate team is really starting to fill out. We haven't seen them all together yet. I think we will in the future whenever, probably when the Maker's Big Dome opens, they're going to, well, I mean, maybe even before that, because I think the next issue is like there's a gatefold cover or a wraparound cover that has like bad guys on one side and the Ultimates on the other. So
yeah, they kind of talk about at the very end of this issue, it kind of switches scenes, and you see what leads up to that event,
right?
With the character that's involved, which is not a spoiler, but is on the cover of a future issue. But it seems like maybe their first, like, we're all together because there's a threat so big we've got to work together.
Yeah, so it's just another great issue of Ultimates. And like I said, first appearance of this new Hawkeye, and it is definitely the first appearance, not a cameo. He's never been in it before, and he's in it a lot in this one, and he's a really cool character. So highly recommend it if you've been reading the Ultimates. This is another banger right here. So that's our A cover. And we have this really nice In-Hyuk Lee cover of just Hawkeye. That's the one that I ordered because he looks so cool. We have this Jeff Shaw cover. So that's your Ultimates team. They haven't, like I said, they haven't all been together like that yet, but this team is really filling out, and it's really cool. And then we have this 1/25 Paolo Siqueira variant that we're selling for $19.99.
Yeah, when he uses different arrows, it's cool where it kind of shows you a little bubble and shows you the tip of the arrow. And it's like, this is this kind of arrow.
Right.
And I thought all of that's really cool. Kind of reminded me of some of the like Matt Fraction era Hawkeye stuff. Some nods to that with the different.
And you do see how how is he such a good marksman?
Yeah,
you see that too.
Yeah, that series is just been really fun. I feel like every issue is a really fun surprise.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay, next up, talk about a new one from Dynamite. This is The Terminator #1. This is by Declan Shalvey, and the art is by Luke Sparrow. And there is a backup story in this that seems like it's going to be continuing by Colin Cracker. So this is really cool because it's a new Terminator book. We've had those in the past, but this one, the way it's structured, seems really cool because it seems like, at least for now, all the main stories in this are going to be standalone. We got kind of the idea in the solicitation about why this is the case, and it talked about that um, Skynet in the future has this idea of like, hey, to stop people, let's start sending Terminators back in time to take out like freedom fighters or even their ancestors. So it kind of shows you can do it at any, the Terminators can be sent at any time. We can get stories that take place at any time. And so this one begins in 2018 in Alaska, where we meet Harper, who is an older man with his wife Penny. They live in a cabin. They seem just very, they love each other. This is after like the events of one of the Terminator timelines where there has been a big war and they escaped, but now it's just kind of an idyllic life. And they seem like they wouldn't harm a fly or whatever. Well, out of the lake comes a Terminator and it's aiming for them. So you kind of question why them? Why is it going after them? Well, we do jump back in time to 1979 and we get the full story about why this Terminator is going after them and how it has been going after them since 1979. And they kind of knew it was inevitable that they would face it one more time. It's a really cool issue. It's very emotional. I feel like Declan Shalvey is really good at that. He can bring a lot of character and heart to situations that are the Terminator. But it's full of action. You see in the present and the past how they plan to take on this Terminator. And I also thought it was really funny that the Terminator in this at one point does look like another 80s action movie star. I hope that keeps going as a trend. But this was really cool. There is a backup story as well that seems like it may be going on for a little while, but it's only maybe 2 pages, so it's very brief.
Okay.
We don't really know what's going on in it. But I think this is going to be a really cool book, especially with each issue taking place at a different time. I think the next one is, I can't remember if it's like World War One or World War II era Terminator fight and stuff. It just seems like a really cool idea for a book. So highly recommend The Terminator #1. We've got some variants for this as well. So we have our Galman variant. We have a Housens variant.
That one looks really cool.
Yeah.
I like that one a lot.
He's kind of punched down like Wolverine or something. We have an Alex Ross variant that is the original cover for his previous, like his first published work where he worked on Terminator. We have also, this is the Sway variant. So very cool. And you get all the fun of like Terminators, looking like a person, but then they get their skin blown off and then they keep coming as robot.
Yeah, that's a
Just
staple.
all the classics are here.
All right, well, next up, we've got Action Comics number 1070. This is the first issue of Action Comics in the All-In era. Just like all the other ones, nice white cover, picture of our main character. We've got the All-In branding, the old school bullet logo. This is written by Mark Waid. The art is by Clayton Henry. I nearly said Clayton Crane. That's a whole different.
It's very different art.
Yeah, so Clayton Henry, Mark Waid. This takes place in the 52 days between the end of Absolute Power and the fight that the Justice League had with Darkseid on the Justice League satellite that we saw in the All-In special. It takes place in between there. You don't
have rest for Superman.
No rest for Superman, yeah, but you don't have to have read either of those because it doesn't reference those at all. That's just when it happens.
Feels very classic Superman.
Yeah, absolutely. So in this, there are 3 Kryptonians that escape from the Phantom Zone, but they're grotesquely merged into one body, except for like their heads.
Their heads are connected at the chin.
Yeah.
Which is horrifying, as they all have like open mouths.
Right.
Like shared open mouths.
Yeah, one body. And it takes the combined might of Superman and Supergirl and one other person to stop them. And then afterwards, Superman's like, maybe I should go into the Phantom Zone and see what's going on in there because, when my dad discovered it, he didn't really know what it was, and maybe I can find a better place to house all these criminals, that kind of thing. So he's going to take a journey into the Phantom Zone just to kind of assess the situation and see if he can improve it at all. Um, there's also a backup story in this by Mariko Tamaki and Skylar Patridge that shows Supergirl preparing to take a journey out into space, but she won't tell anyone where she's going. Despite being asked by several people, she will not give up that information. So this is just a really cool issue. All these all-in books are designed to be good jumping on points, and this one is an absolutely great jumping on point for Superman. You don't need to know anything other than who's Superman.
Yeah.
To read this and enjoy it. And this is going to be weekly for the next 3 months. So every single week for the next 12 weeks, we are going to have a new issue of Action Comics to read. And we're going to get Mon-El at some point. He's not in this issue, but he's going to be part of it. And then this guy down here,
the Phantom King.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is, like I said, this is so classic feeling that this could take place at any time in Superman's career. It's clean, it's fun. There's some really fun, like, just classic Superman bits in here with supporting characters.
Yeah, there's even a couple of, I guess we'll say, items that I don't think we've seen since the Silver Age.
Yeah.
And like you said, like this could be a story set in the Silver Age, and it would totally fit just fine. It's wonderful. I absolutely loved it. So definitely don't miss this if you're wanting to jump on some new Superman, or if you're a longtime reader of Superman, you can still read this. Either way, you're good. So there's our A cover right there. We have this Wes Craig variant. We have this really nice Eddie Barrows variant, which I feel like maybe should have been a variant for the previous story arc that Gail Simone wrote. But I really like that one. And then, of course, just like all of our first all-in books, we have the Daniel Sampere foil variant, which looks like a mirror. You can see our recording equipment there. So very nice Daniel Sampere there. And then we have this 1 in 25 Mark Spears cover that we're selling for $24.99. Just a great issue of Superman.
Yeah, it's almost hard to talk about it because it is so great that it's like, there's nothing to dissect about it. It's just a straightforward Superman story.
It's just Superman being Superman, doing Superman things, and it's a whole lot of fun.
Although there is, at the very beginning, a location that has been rebuilt that I was like, oh, well, that's convenient.
Yeah, for sure. We saw them do that in one issue of something.
Did we?
Yeah, I think so.
So it just feels like status quo back to normal.
Yep.
Okay, next up, I've got Conquest 2099. This is the follow-up to Annihilation 2099, and this is Steve Orlando, who's been writing a lot of these. What came before Annihilation 2099? It was...
wasn't it just one of the other Spider-Man 2099?
I guess so, but he's been working on this story, this big story, it feels like for a couple of years now. But this one feels like kind of one of the big parts of it. So you could jump into this without reading Annihilation 2099 or all that, but it does help because this does have a bigger cast of characters that were introduced in those. But this is by Steve Orlando. The art is by Ibrahim Roberson and Jose Luis. And this picks up on the storyline of Dracula, who has been part of it, at least for the last 2 big story arcs. But Dracula has been lost in space, and he's been one to kind of rebuild the vampire empire. They have their home planet of Dominus Draconum that he wants to get back to. In the last series, we saw him build up this kind of like generals of vampires. One's a Skrull, one's a Shi'ar, one's a Badoon. Like, he's got these kind of second in commands. But really, this Dracula at this point doesn't seem like a super dangerous character because he's not out to get anybody. He did convert a lot of people into vampires, but he really just wants to go back to his family.
But other than that,
he does just kind of want to go back to his family that he left on their home planet and live out his life as the leader of these vampires. So most of this issue is about that and kind of getting you reacquainted with what Dracula's doing. He's got a big plan. He's got a Darkhawk character in this that is pretty literal that he needs help from. He's got his spaceship that kind of looks like a giant like gothic castle. It kind of looks like a Lord of the Rings tower, but turned on the side with rockets. Um, but the problem is when he shows up back on his home planet, finds out that it has been decimated by a villain, which is Spider Side 2099. Now, this isn't a spoiler because it's really the setup for the entire storyline. And of course, this is going to lead him maybe down a road of revenge or hunting this character down. Now, the other part of this, we do go back to Spider Man 2099. He's teamed up fighting a criminal with the X Men 2099, which is really fun. But he wants to get to this portal that a local lab has because he has a friend coming to visit from Mars. And this is where we meet our first appearance of Spider Woman 2099. But she may have a connection with Spider Side and may be the thing that pulls these storylines together. We also get the return of Nova 2099, which, if you know who that is really
Oh,
fun.
yeah.
Not all of the characters we see on the cover. There's no Red Hulk 2099, none of those, but there is a few other familiar faces like the X-Men 2099 that show up in this. But it seems like a really fun start to another big story that I don't exactly know where it's going because it at this point, other than the Spider Side character, that seems like, oh, that's a big Dracula problem, but it doesn't really seem like for our main heroes that has reared its head yet. So it'll be interesting to see. But I thought it was fun, especially if you read the previous series, continuing on with this one. But that it does have more Spider Man 2099 in it is really fun. And also, we were introduced to all these characters previously, but he doesn't know any of them yet.
Right.
So they kind of have to reintroduce themselves to him. That is our A cover for it. And we've got our Lashley variant, and that is your Spider Woman 2099, who is definitely more alien than Miguel is.
Are we sure that's her first appearance? I thought she popped up somewhere else.
I'm not positive, but I feel like they act like it's her first appearance
Okay.
in it. And then we also have the Pete Woods variant, and there you do see that is Spider Side 2099, who's a big kind of almost like Terrax.
Yeah.
Like he's a big brutish character.
I like that cover though,
Yeah.
like the trade dress and everything. Looks like an old, sci-fi magazine.
Yeah, it's really cool.
I've got another DC All-In book. This is the Green Lantern Civil Corps Special. This is written by Jeremy Adams and Philip Kennedy Johnson, and the art is by Salvador LaRocca. And what this does is this kind of merges together. You have Jeremy Adams' Green Lantern run, and then you had Philip Kennedy Johnson's Green Lantern War Journal that just wrapped up. And they were telling two different stories that were kind of running parallel to each other. This basically merges those two stories together, borrows elements from both stories, mixes it all up, and then sends it forward into the start of a new big story that we're going to be getting soon. And in this one, so we have Hal and John and Carol. They head off to Thanagar because they want to tell the council at Thanagar that Theros has corrupted the United Planets, which has been something that's been going on in the Green Lantern book for a while. And then Guy and Shepard. Shepard is a character that we met over in Green Lantern War Journal. They go to Oa just to see what the situation is like there because that's where the United Planets is, and they got to figure out like is it as bad as it seems? Is there shady stuff going on? So neither mission goes very well, as you might imagine, but it does set up some big things to come for the Green Lantern series. I actually went ahead and after I read this, I read Green Lantern number 16 that comes out next week. And it's very epic and it's only going to get bigger. One thing I will say is that these all-in books are designed for new readers to jump on and just enjoy these. I feel like maybe this is the exception. I feel like if you haven't been reading either Green Lantern series and then you jump into this, you're going to be pretty confused as to what's going on. I didn't finish the Green Lantern War Journal series, and I was a little bit confused by a couple of things. Nothing too major, but I didn't know a couple of the characters and things like that. So if you haven't been reading Green Lantern, this might not be the best one to get, but Jeremy Adams' Green Lantern run has been fantastic, and Philip Kennedy Johnson's Green Lantern War Journal was really good too. So it's worth it. If you're a Green Lantern fan, it's worth it to get caught up on those and then read this. And I'll also say that you're not going to want to read next week's Green Lantern number 16 without reading this because the end of this leads right into the beginning of that. And if you open that book without this, you're going to be like, wait, what's going on here? And why are they all around? So if you are reading Green Lantern, don't miss this because it's very, very, very good. And read this before Green Lantern 16 next week. But yeah, catch up on the Green Lantern series first before you jump into this because otherwise you might be quite a bit lost. But like I said, both very good series that I highly recommend you read anyway because they're just really good.
Yep.
So there's our A cover right there. And then we have this really nice foil version of that. I don't think that's the one I pre-ordered, but I kind of wish it were now. And of course, we have our Daniel Sampere foil variant with Carol Ferris, Star Sapphire, who is in this and plays a pretty big part.
Very cool. Can't wait to read that one.
Yeah, it's really good.
Green Lantern's one of our favorite books coming out right now. Next up, I've got Exceptional X-Men #2. I really like this book. I mentioned in our shorter show, I don't think this is the X-Men book for everybody because it is definitely, it's not the like classic feeling one as like the X-Men or the Uncanny X-Men books are. But if you're a big fan of like Kitty Pryde and a little bit more like grounded human stories, this one is great for that. So I love Kitty Pryde. I really like the first issue of this, and I like her current role. She seems like one of the few that not only kind of regrets the Krakoan era stuff, but like actively is fighting against, you know, anything that had to do with that. She feels really guilty about how she acted during that time. She became kind of an assassin again, and she just wants to get back to a normal life. So she's working in a coffee shop now. And in the last issue, she met the girl Trista, who was a young mutant that eventually seems like she's going to go by the name Bronze. But Trista was really excited to meet her, but Kitty Pryde is like, I do not want to have a mentor role. Like, don't think that just because I did this, I'm gonna always be there and teach you how to become an X-Men or anything. But of course, that doesn't stop Trista from constantly blowing up her phone while Kitty Pryde's at work, and she's just trying to like, get her to move on or whatever. But the other thing that's going on in here is that Kitty had to cancel, or a date was canceled in the previous issue with a girl named Nina, who we didn't see in the last one, but that's kind of the instigating that got Kitty Pryde out of the house. In this one, they're trying to make it up, so Nina invites Kitty because they both work uh, certain kinds of jobs. They can only go on dates during the day. And it's just like, well, I've got to go to my cousin's soccer game. Do you want to come with me there? So Kitty Pryde's like, sure. But of course, at the soccer game, there is a mutant who's there watching one of his friends play soccer, and he starts getting picked on. And this causes a girl who is part of the soccer team, who also seems to be a mutant, to kind of start a fight with the people who are picking on this guy. And once again, Kitty Pryde finds herself in the middle of a mutant skirmish that she didn't want to be a part of, and without even noticing, she starts to mentor these characters about how to use their powers and what to do in these situations, which is all really fun because she kind of stumbles into that, and then it's like, why am I doing this again? So that's all really, really fun. But also, there is the little thing about Emma Frost, who we've seen a little bit, like on the last page of the previous issue. And in this one, it seems like Emma Frost is kind of poking and prodding Kitty Pryde's mind throughout the day, where I don't even know if Kitty really notices it, that's who's doing it, but she'll mention, like, oh, I've got a headache now, or something like that. And what is Emma Frost trying to get from her? And a little bit more of that is revealed in this issue as well. So I thought this was a really, really fun issue. We got introduced to two new characters that seem like they're going to be part of whatever becomes of Kitty Pryde and her new mutant friends. So one of them's on the variant cover, and this is the other one. And this character has a power that's similar to Kitty's, which is really interesting. But overall, I really like this issue. This is it's Carmen Carnero on the art, and it's just with somebody who can draw like casual clothes really well, and it doesn't look, I don't know, like out of place, or someone who has no idea about fashion.
Yeah.
Kitty's always wearing something that's like, yeah, someone would really wear that. It's just really fun, and it's really refreshing after reading books like X-Men that have such a big storyline going on. So this is our A cover, which Kitty's not in uniform in this. The other characters are not in uniform. It's still very, very like down to earth. This is the other character that they meet, Axo, who's the one getting picked on. That's powers are really fun and very Wonder Woman's Lasso of Truth kind of related. Then we have a super cool Terry Dodson Doom variant, which Doom does not appear in this, but that would be an awesome
That would
story.
be cool.
And then lastly, we have a Miguel variant. This is a 1 in 25 or something for $12.99, and those are the two characters that are introduced in this issue.
Well, next I've got The Autumn Kingdom #2 from Colin Bunn and Christopher Mitten. First one came out, a couple weeks ago, 2 or 3, 4 weeks ago. It was really cool. Colin Bunn is great at this kind of stuff. So in this one, this picks up right where the last issue ended off, where Winter and Summer are fighting these big monsters in the woods using that big stone sword, and they do manage to fight off those monsters, but they still have no idea what's going on. Um, I don't want to say too much because there's some revelations in here, but they do seek out some help and learn that their parents have been promised to the Autumn Kingdom because that's what they're doing. They're these monsters burst into their house. Their parents disappeared. They fought the monsters off. Now they got to find their parents, and they've been promised to the Autumn Kingdom. And we still don't know what that is yet, but they're told that the Autumn Kingdom is dying and requires a blood sacrifice, and that their parents have been taken below through the blight.
Oh.
Don't know what that is yet. That more to come on that.
Fantasy words.
Yeah, right. But so more to come on that. But it's cool because this kind of the father of these two daughters, he's a fantasy writer, and the books that he writes, he kind of uses his daughters as the protagonists, but he makes them like these fantasy heroines. And the fighting they do in this, it shows like some like channels or like artwork from the book, and how it kind of compares to what's really going on in this versus what the books look like, and it's really cool. So if you like the first issue, please do not miss the second one because we are starting to get a few answers, but still have lots of questions. But there's our A cover right there, and that is the only cover I have.
Next up, I've got a new indie book. This is by Fred Van Lint, and the art is by Chris Panda, and it is called Murder Kingdom. So this is really fun. So in this, we meet our main character, Tanith. She is kind of a teenager, kind of a young adult, probably in college, and she works at a storybook theme park.
Oh, this is the one.
Yeah,
Oh, okay, yeah.
she works at a storybook theme park. She's a ride operator for this kind of like Candy Mountain roller coaster. She likes the job because she can just kind of hang out, and she wants to her dream job wants to design escape rooms, and she has like pencil sketches of them
Yeah.
and stuff. But the job's getting a little bit more and more annoying, and she does think that maybe she wants to go work at a cat cafe. Uh, but uh, something happens where um, one of the days she's working, there's a princess, a girl who plays a princess in this, and they're really big into don't break character. Like that's a key thing in here. That's a big thing at Disney too. You never, you don't say you're a character. You say you're friends with a character. And if you're like on the grounds or whatever, you do not break character. They even kind of like tell them things to do to stay in character, but to like, if someone's bothering you, what to say. But one of the princesses that plays Briar Rose, which is Sleeping Beauty,
Oh yeah.
goes on like a TikTok rant. It gets drunk and talks about her job and how much she hates it, and like all this stuff, and like immediately fired from this job. But they have a scheduled like meet and greet with Briar Rose, and Tanith gets drafted to play that character. But the Don't Break character gets kind of so intense that she notices one of her friends, who's another one of the characters, gives her the motion for there's something wrong. And she follows him only to discover that maybe the previous princess has been murdered in the park. And that's kind of our setup for the story. It was really fun. I like the kind of the theme park setting of it. And I don't know, it was just a kind of refreshing story. I like the like intensity of this theme park and the rules they lay down, and clearly at some point they tried to like unionize, and it did not go over well, and there's still some remnants of that. But yeah, I thought it was really fun. If you're looking for something very different, Murder Kingdom is a lot of fun. We've got our A cover here in a very disturbing Henderson variant.
All right. Well, next up, we've got Batman and Robin number 14. And this is the first issue of this in the All In era with our new creative team of Philip Kennedy Johnson and Javi Fernandez. Now, this is the first appearance of a new villain named Memento, but he's not in it all that much, and we don't really know anything about him yet, but he does show up in this. And this issue starts with a really cool action sequence of Batman and Robin chasing after some they're taking on some bad guys in this high speed car chase, basically, but they don't have a car, but they're still chasing them across a bridge. Doesn't really have anything to do with the main story, but it's just really cool looking. But later that night, Bruce and Damian attend a charity function at a newly reopened medical center. But Damian is pretty unhappy about having to do it because he thinks their time could be better spent out on patrol. And Bruce has to tell him, well, yeah, but we also help people this way by raising money for a new hospital, which is going to give people health care, things like that. And I don't want to say too much more, but you know that if Bruce Wayne goes to a charity function, it can't go smoothly, right? Something always has to happen. And something does happen that is eerily similar to something that happened at that same facility over a century ago. And that kind of is going to be what this larger story arc is about. But yeah, just a really good issue of Batman and Robin. It's a little bit less lighthearted than the last few issues have been, but it's still really cool. I'm really interested in this new villain that we have here and kind of his modus operandi. And also, I'm interested in Damian being a bit restless with, you know, when he's doing things other than fighting bad guys, because there's one little part where Bruce kind of worries. He's like, that's kind of what that's all Damien wants to seem to do is just go out on patrol, and there's more to life than that, especially with him being a kid. So lots of cool stuff in here. Just the artwork's great, the action, all that stuff. So a great issue, and you can read this without reading anything else. You know who Batman is, you know who Robin is. That's all you need to know. You don't need to know anything else.
It's
So
a new creative team.
new creative team, exactly. So there's your A cover right there, and we have this Yannick Paquette variant with Batman and Robin. Of course, we have our Daniel Sampere foil variant with Damien on there. And then we have this nice 1 in 25 Christian variant that we're selling for $24.99.
Now, one of my other favorite books of the week, I thought this was so much
Oh,
fun.
yeah,
This is
so good.
Transformers number 13. And usually we don't keep talking about books after they're so far into the series. How could you not talk about Transformers? It continues to be amazing. And this is a Starscream centric issue. And this does pick up after the events where Soundwave basically just destroyed um, Starscream and left him in pieces on the
Yeah.
floor. And part of this takes place kind of currently with what happens with him there. And part of it is a flashback to Starscream back when he wasn't even called Starscream, back on Cybertron, back when the war between the Autobots and Decepticons was just starting and different people were choosing their sides. Um, and we see Starscream was friends with Jetfire at the time, who was about to head out on his adventuring, which is where we pick him up when we met him in Void Rivals. And they have another friend who has just recently joined the Decepticon side. And we really see in this why Starscream chooses the path that he takes, because through some events, you do see, I guess he's Orion Pax at the time, but Optimus Prime in a pretty scary light that
Yeah.
makes him seem like the villain.
It's definitely from the point of view of Starscream,
Yeah.
and the Autobots that come in almost look like the villains.
Yeah, yeah. So you really see like this broken Starscream, and you know he's got his own dreams and visions and all of that kind of thing, and how that gets kind of messed up because of this war. But that's really fun. You do find out why he's called Starscream in this, and I don't want to give away too much, but in the current day, there is a connection with G.I. Joe and some of that, which I didn't necessarily recognize all the characters,
Right.
but I did recognize some of the things that were there. And that was super cool, and it's just setting up the next big story coming for Transformers. So don't miss out on this issue. I think it's hard to say the best issues of Transformers, but this one's definitely up there because it's just kind of a little bit of a standalone story, and you do see some pretty awesome stuff in here. So that is your A cover by Daniel Warren Johnson. We've got this Lullaby variant, which that's their other friend on Cybertron. And on Cybertron, they have Cybertronian names, and
Yeah.
there's no way I'm going to remember any
Right,
of those.
right.
We've got our Jorge Corona variant, which I don't want to say too much about, but this happens in the issue. And then we have a 1 in 10 Victor variant that we're selling for $9.99 with Starscream and Jetfire and Megatron. We have a 1 in 25 Fornes variant we're selling for $29.99 with Soundwave, which is super cool, super 80s looking.
That should be on a Trapper Keeper.
It should be on a Trapper Keeper. And then we have a 1 in 50 Francesco variant we're selling for $39.99 with a really cool Megatron.
Yeah, it turns out Starscream's Cybertronian name is Bill.
Yeah, who would have
Who would
thought?
have thought? Yeah. All right, well, I've got DC versus Vampires World War V #3. And there's a few different storylines going on in this. We have Green Lantern Alfred. Yes, you heard that right. We saw that last issue. He takes on Vampire Wonder Woman. Like, I could take a whole issue of that. Ghostmaker searches for the mysterious man with the miracle baby that we saw in issue #1. There's still a whole lot of mystery around that, but we do see where the baby came from, which I don't know if I should have known that before now or not.
At your age, you should know where babies
Well,
come
I'm
from.
not that, but this baby specifically. But yeah, we see whose baby it is and maybe why they're so special, where it comes from. And Damien and his forces are attacked by Vampire, Shazam, Wonder Girl, and Raven, and things look pretty bleak until somebody shows up to help. I don't want to say who it is, but maybe you could look on the cover right there. But yeah, just another cool issue of DC versus Vampires World War V. I finally got caught up on the first series, so now this all makes so much more sense now that I know who all the players are. But yeah, if you've been reading it, don't miss out on the third issue. There's our A cover right there, and we have this really cool Kendrick Lim Vampire Wonder Woman variant.
Next up for me, I've got Amazing Spider-Man issue 59. This is the penultimate issue of Zeb Wells' run on Amazing Spider-Man. The next issue is going to be a big oversized issue. But in this one, this picks up basically from the very last page of the previous issue where Tombstone has now decided to go after his own daughter, and Spider-Man is going to try and stop him, and that leads to a huge fight. We saw some of that in the last issue, and most of this issue is just a fight between Spider-Man and Tombstone.
I think it's the whole issue except maybe 3 pages. It's
Yeah.
just them fighting each other in the subway.
Is a very like over the top. You see Spider-Man, basically be like, "Okay, I'm not holding back anymore. I will do whatever it takes to stop Tombstone." And Spider-Man gets pretty ruthless. But also, I'll say I read this issue in maybe 3 minutes at most, and that's
quick read,
really
yeah.
like taking my time because there's not a whole lot of dialogue. It
Yeah.
is mostly just Tombstone and Spider-Man throwing each other into walls and trains and
Yeah.
everything else.
Literally,
so
yeah.
it's pretty intense, but a real fun issue if you're looking for just over-the-top action. Like the cover here is essentially panel 1 that leads from the final panel of the previous issue and continues into panel 1
Yeah.
of this issue.
I thought that was really clever.
Yeah, it's just non-stop. So that is your A cover. We also have this nice Carnero variant with Jackpot and Black Cat.
Who were nowhere to be found when Spider-Man needed help.
No. We also have the Disney variant, which I love that homage.
I love the claws or utensils.
Yeah, and apparently in the Disney world, any character can be any, because like Donald Duck was Wolverine
yeah.
one thing, and then we also have this 1 in 25 Ricky variant that we're selling for $19.99, which that's basically right before it all just goes out a window.
Literally. All right, next up I've got Phoenix #4, and in this one it's cool because Phoenix Jean Grey takes on Gore the God Butcher. which is pretty cool. Their fight is monitored by the Galactic Council because they're currently having a debate about what to do about Phoenix. Some of them think that there shouldn't be anything done because she hasn't done anything wrong. She's out, flying around the cosmos trying to help people. But others have seen her lose control of the Phoenix Force before, and they think that she is a potential threat. So just more Phoenix out in space goodness. We do get a bit of a cameo appearance by Carol Danvers. She and Jean Grey have a great conversation. But yeah, Jean Grey versus Gore the God Butcher is really cool. They talk about the Necro Sword, and there's all there's allusions back to all the stuff with Thor. So yeah, another cool issue. This is one of my favorite from the Ashes era books. So don't miss that. That's our A cover right there, and we have this nice Mana Doom variant. I would like to see that fight.
Next up, I have a new book from Dark Horse. This is Seance in the Asylum #1. This is by Clay McLeod Chapman and Leonardo Marcello Grassi is the artist on it. And this is really cool. This is very horror horror leaning. As we have a character they call Miss Wilkinson. She is a psychic medium, or appears to be one, even though she has flashbacks to a time where she was brought in front of a room full of people and disproved her abilities and kind of shamed and all of that. But that doesn't stop a doctor at an asylum from contacting her. This is right after, I believe, World War I. I'm not positive, but they just talk about the war, and so the people who came back from that and how they uh, might even been the Civil War. They have been really kind of devastated by stuff, and they're hearing voices and all of that. And they say, "Who's to say that the voices they're hearing aren't the dead? So would you come in to our asylum where they're being treated and do some research and stuff?" But this whole time you're thinking, is she real or not? And yeah, it's really fun because she starts checking in with these people and everything, but it looks like maybe her powers are real, and it's about to get real crazy in this asylum. So, a really fun horror book that kind of deals with ghosts and is she real or not. But yeah, if you're looking for a new spooky book for the season, I'll suggest this one.
I love spooky books at this time of year.
Yep.
All right, so next up is Spider-Man: Black Suit and Blood #3, and just like all the other issues, this is a anthology book with 3 separate, quick one-and-done stories. We get one written by Justina Ireland, and the art is by Netho Diaz, where Spider-Man helps find a missing girl, but he's still wearing the symbiote, and that makes him not such a friendly neighborhood Spider-Man. We get another story called Whatever Happened to Master Blood by Al Ewing and Juan Cabal. And this one's set during the original Secret Wars, which is really cool. It is the first appearance of a new villain named Master Blood, but it's also his last appearance. So don't get too excited, speculators, because you'll understand when you read it. And there's another story written and drawn by Leonardo Romero where Mysterio gets a hold of some Fantastic Four tech and goes after Spider-Man with these big, extravagant illusions. And there's some really cool imagery. Leonardo Romero has a very unique style, and there's some really cool panel layouts and visual storytelling going on in that one. So just wanted to let you know that the new issue's out. I like this series because I love the Black Suit, and I love little anthology books like this where we get a whole bunch of just little quick stories. And this one's another good one. So we have our A cover right there, and we have this Dustin Nguyen variant.
Next up, I've got Scarlett issue #5. This is the final issue of the Scarlett miniseries. And in this, if you've been reading it, you know that Scarlett has been going after this weapon for the Arashikage clan, along with Storm Shadow. And in this, Storm Shadow gets his hands on this sword that appears to maybe be Energon related.
It sure is purple.
It sure is purple and glowing.
Yep.
So this is really cool, but of course, some other people, if there's Energon involved, want a piece of it, and that includes Cobra. So I don't want to give away too much. It is the final issue, but it does seem like the Arashikage in this new Energon universe may be a bigger, formidable group than we originally thought.
This isn't the last we're going to see of them for sure.
No, not by far. They are only getting stronger by the end of this. So, really fun final issue of the miniseries, and we're all geared up now and ready for the G.I. Joe book to begin.
Wasn't there one issue of Destro left?
I think there's one
Yeah.
issue of Destro, but for this one,
for this one, yeah.
it continues on into G.I. Joe #1. So that is your A cover. We also have this Oem variant, which is really cool. We've got a 1 in 10 Gleb Milkonov variant we're selling for $9.99. And we've got this 1 in 25 Georgiev variant we're selling for $24.99.
Ooh, I like that.
Yeah, for the Red Ninja.
All right, well, I've got X-Force #4. There was what was it, 4 different From the Ashes books this week. Yeah. I don't think this happened before. And this one, this is the second part of the story that started last issue, where X-Force, in this one, they track Nuclo, who is the big guy, the big villain. They track him from Cambodia to the Florida Everglades, though Forge still can't quite figure out where or what this latest fracture point is. And it's not a spoiler to say, because he's right there on the cover. Man-Thing shows up to help them fight against Nuclo. It's actually really cool. Just kind of made me want another Man-Thing book, because he's just really cool in this. And the last page is really interesting, and it gives me a lot of questions that I like. It's really cool. Like, I want to see more of that. Hopefully they will address that next issue, because it was cool. But yeah, just want to let you know about X-Force #4. If you've been reading it, don't miss out on the next issue. There is our A cover. We have this really cool Ferreira variant. And we have a Clayton Crane variant with Tank. I really like Tank, but I don't really know anything about him yet, but he's cool.
Next up, another new #1. This is Toxic Avenger #1, and this is by Matt Bors and art by Fred Harper. And I think there is another creator on here, because they weren't listed on the cover, but there is a second story in here. And if you're not familiar with Toxic Crusader, Toxic Avenger, all of that, you have the original movie, the animated series, the toy line.
The toys, oh my gosh.
The toy line is fantastic. Very Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles adjacent. But in this, it kind of jumps right into the middle of a story where Tromaville, where is Toxie's home place, is going through some kind of like epidemic or something, where kids or younger people are getting turned into big monsters. They almost look like Toxie, and some people are blaming him for it, but we don't quite know for sure what is the cause of it. But it's this cover, that's kind of what the art looks like on the inside. It's kind of painterly. It's very weird, almost like Richard Corbin looking. And then the backup story is weird, because it kind of jumps backwards to the beginning of this, which I couldn't tell in here, like, how long has he been the Toxic Avenger? Did this just happen, or is he seems well established, and his family kind of seems to be okay with it. But this goes back to the beginning of this big outbreak, where we see the creation of the Toxic Avenger. And it's not really like the movie or the animated series, from what I can remember. It's got elements, but this does seem like a kind of a reboot of the storyline. So if you like Toxic Avenger and how weird it is and how kind of gross it is, all of that, you'll like this. But if you're looking just for something super weird and the art is crazy, the art looking like that, check it out. So we've got our A cover here, and then there's a really fun variant cover that is polybagged with a trading card.
Well, my last one is Venom #38, and this is a Venom War tie-in. So if you're trying to keep up with the tie-ins, don't miss this one. In this one, Doctor Strange takes Old Man Dylan to see Chthon, so that Dylan can get his help building a weapon that'll save the future, which is what he's been doing over the last couple issues. But of course, it's Chthon. It's not all that easy. Chthon does put him through a test, and even after that test, still demands something of Dylan before he will help. So it was really cool, though, to see, like, you don't normally see like Venom and like demons and stuff. But Another good issue of I've been enjoying this Venom War tie-in. There's also the second issue of Venom War Wolverine. I didn't read that one. I don't have it here, but that also comes out this week. So like I said, if you're trying to keep up with all the Venom War tie-ins, don't miss out on these. And this is the only cover I have.
Next up, I've got Geiger, issue number 7. This is really interesting. For one, you've got Paul Pelletier joining Jeff Johns on art, which is great. Also, this has 2 A covers. This is this is kind of the one that wasn't shown everywhere. The other one has just Zigzag, the 3-eyed zebra on the cover, which is a great character. But yeah, so if you get one cover, not the other, they're both A covers, so they kind of split up 50-50. This is a really fun issue where Geiger and Nate, the Nuclear Knight, run into some more knights, and Nate is kind of torn whether they should fight against them or not because he remembers that he knows them, he knows their families, all of that. But Geiger, of course, has no problem taking them out, and it's a really interesting kind of morality thing between them. And then also there's some kids getting attacked by some night crawlers, which are some like giant ant creatures. And Geiger shows another one of his kind of softer sizes. He tries to protect them. But really fun issue. Getting into a new story where we've got Paul Pelletier on art for the next few issues.
Oh, nice. I love his work, so it's cool to see him on this.
So here is your A cover for that. We've got our Pelletier variant.
I think that's the one I pre-ordered just because it's so zany.
And then we also have a Marion variant. And then I'm not done yet because, so I don't even have them all here, but a lot of Dark Horse Star Wars books came out this week. We've got a new one. This is Star Wars High Republic Adventures, Dispatches from the Occlusion Zone. And this is going to be, I think, kind of a pseudo anthology where this is written by Daniel Jose Older and the art is by Paris Aline. And in this, Elzar Mann, the Jedi, sends out some probes into the Occlusion Zone, which they can't really travel through too easily because the Nile have it all blocked off. But they want to check in with people who are stuck behind it. Seems like each issue of this, we're going to get one of those stories of what different Jedi and other characters are doing beyond this wall that they can't penetrate. And in this one, we get a story with Quart and Farzala and some of the other High Republic Adventures characters. And yeah, it seems like each issue we're going to check in with some different ones. So this is your A cover for that. That's the only cover I have. And then we also have High Republic Adventures Echoes of Fear, issue number 2. I really liked issue number 1 of this. This is by George Mann. And in this, Reef Silas and his Padawan Amadeo Azazo are doing some research into the Echo Stones, which seem like these artifacts that super boost your Force abilities. And they're in the Jedi archives researching these and different accounts of people encountering them. The last one we learned about Darth Ravi, and in this one we learn about Barnabas Vim and his Padawan Vix Bonnick. And the story is about how Barnabas he left behind his Padawan before he disappeared forever and sent messages to him as he got deeper and deeper into space and the weird things he learned there. But I also think there's a few other High Republic adventure books out this week. Saber for Hire, I think, comes out, and another one. I think there's about 4.
It's a big Star Wars
It's
week.
a big Star Wars week for Dark Horse and the High Republic, so don't miss out on any of those. I don't have a variant for this one as well, but yeah, definitely check the website to see everything that came out this week. And that was my last book. So it was a very big week, absolutely, kicking off with Absolute Batman. But no one else held back. Everyone put out a ton of great stuff. But definitely head over to infinityflux.net right now, where you can order these books while supplies last, and while Absolute Batman lasts, and those cards we will be giving those out with Absolute Batman #1 while supplies last. We got the Batman one, or the Superman one. We have a few coming up in the future, including a Dark Side one. So we'll let you know week by week how you can get those cards. But I appreciate everyone for watching, staying with us till the end. Let us know in the comments which of these books you're most excited about. Of course, Absolute Batman. But what else?
Yeah.
Give us your list. What is your pull list this week?
Absolute Batman, and what else?
Yeah.
Right, yeah.
We're really pushing this. It seems like we have some vested interest. We just really love it.
We just loved it. It's that good. It really is. We're not being paid to say that.
Yeah.
Like nothing.
Nope. So let us know, what is your pull list in the comment section. We'd love to know that. Stay tuned for our video coming up on Wednesday. We'll be going over the books that you can pre-order early. I think Absolute Superman is going to be on that one, so that's going to be great. A lot of great stuff coming out in comics, and so much to choose from.
Yeah.
So thank you so much for watching, and until next time, see ya.